contracts and AI rights and not signing away AI rights, and it was done from Penny Banner.
Oh, okay.
The fact that no one recognized the name is good for the two of you.
Yeah,
not a lick.
I don't know. I mean,
don't.
Yeah, I have no
context
intention
that I'm missing here.
I have no intention of looking that up. I was just looking the content of signing away AI rights.
It's an unfortunate thing that you have to look at now because that's getting. But we don't have performer contracts on this show. We don't have contracts at all.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
because we would be voiding them, or they would be voiding us, rather. The powers that be.
I do what I want. It's my hot voice.
How do we still have a job here?
Oh, job?
Oh, sorry. You missed a lot, dude. Yeah, we have benefits now.
Oh, yeah, I don't. How do I?
Now wait. Before maybe you should have him explain the package first.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So we have no dental, no medical, no 401k.
Nope.
What we do have is it's actually nothing. We're paying like $4,000 a month as a company, and we're literally getting nothing in return. The HR folks have no idea what they're doing. This is their first gig right out of school.
That's not completely true though. They do keep that bowl of clementines in the break room filled, and they're usually not moldy when they fill them.
How are they always in season? The season can't be year round.
Look, I don't know. Look, GMOs and stuff. I don't ask these questions.
Magicians, I swear.
Look, it's at least free vitamin C.
Oh, there you go. No scurvy.
So I suppose we can make our run to the Isle of Tortuga without having to worry about the scurvies.
Well, I mean, except for the punk band.
Yeah, but they also kind of turned the last cruise down, so we had to go with the backup group, and that just.
What in the actual hell are we talking about anymore?
I didn't know the second we pressed record.
Yeah. Hey, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
I'm not even completely sure this microphone's plugged in, honestly. You guys may just be humoring me.
We're pretending we know what you're talking about.
And doing a pretty good job of it.
You haven't been on the show for like 6 months, dude. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's completely edited out.
Show? What show?
This Fairly KickAss, that's what it's called. The Fairly KickAss podcast, this show right here, which is starting right now. And I lost my train of thought. This is the Fairly KickAss podcast. Whatever I was going to say didn't matter whatsoever.
My favorite thing about that whole spiel that we just did is you paused right after you were talking about like what benefits we have. And you're like, we don't have this, and what we do have. And then you paused. And I was like, is a certain set of skills?
You're on the wrong podcast, dude.
Yeah, right. Liam Neeson, this motherfucker.
Hate to tell you, sets of skills, not going to be the case here. On the Fairly KickAss podcast, you got Zack, you got Dan, and returning to our, I don't know if I'd call them good graces, our mediocre graces at best, is the one and only Jay.
Hello. It's been a minute.
Would it be safe to say he's in our skibbity graces now?
He is in our Skibbity, Ohio toilet graces.
Here's the problem.
Just one?
Yeah, there's only really one problem with that. I spend way too much time around people who actually talk like that. And here's the problem. What you said made sense.
No. That wasn't the intent.
I know.
Oh, listeners, if that made sense to any of you, then I've thoroughly apologized for what's about to happen next.
Yep.
We are three boomers through and through, and we're not going to be talking about Riz, Ohio, or otherwise. But instead, we are going to be talking about one of our famous top 5 episodes.
Interestingly enough, it is related to old age because it all hails to a lack of memory.
Indeed, something that the three of us share, something that listeners, plenty of you share, I'm sure, as well. You hear songs, you hear lyrics, you really vibe to them, and then you don't anymore. You completely forget about them until months later, years later, in some cases, decades later, and it just triggers something in your head. You're like, holy shit, it's been so long since I've heard this song. This is a top 5 list of those songs for us. Songs that we haven't heard in some period of time, songs that have been lost to the annals of history, and songs that we have been reintroduced to good and maybe to bad effect, depending on how our lists go. I definitely have some in the bad category on mine, but
I didn't go that route, but I did have a slightly separate take on how to come up with this list.
Yeah.
So the primary function was that it had to have a, oh shit, that song kind of moment, right? That was definitely a part of it. But the problem with that is that I also, as you pointed out, we're old and brains are pudding. So that might have been last week. And I took a different route too. Do you ever write something and regret it while you're writing it?
All the time.
Weekly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. In good company again, I guess.
Indeed.
I gotta say, I also right in line there because I literally wrote down how did I qualify this? That oh yeah factor when you hear a song that just hits that moment. And the thing that helped a ton with this, which we probably should do something about this, dude, is that way back when Zack and I started putting together this huge collaborative playlist on Spotify, just as a certain we'd hear something, I go, you got to hear this, and just throw it in the playlist. And we did a lot. Because there's 71 hours of music in this playlist.
And a lot of my list came from that playlist.
A good chunk of my list came from that playlist, and then I went from that playlist to another playlist that was old. And I'm like, either way, we should maybe start using that playlist again, or clean it up, or
I was gonna say clean your floors,
something with it.
You know, start a forest fire.
Here's the thing: I think we can get it to 100 hours if we really try.
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay,
without a doubt. It is a magical playlist, and was responsible for the fact that I have 20 or so honorable mentions.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And another 30 of so long listers. So yeah, I'm going to be cutting those down as we talk about them.
I did have to cut mine down, and I'll explain a little bit later why, but at the very least, how long was my quote short playlist? That was kind of short. It's only 8.5 hours long.
Yeah, to be expected.
Okay. Y'all are insane. I didn't do that. But I did have the issue of having a significant other who was like, as we were talking about my list, and the response was, are you sure you're going with songs you forgot about and not songs no one's ever heard of?
That was a concern for me, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's why I took several off of my, short list, because they were just so esoteric, I guess, that no one would have had any idea what they were.
I changed up a couple based on that particular very hurtful statement.
Let's get you to the core, man.
Right.
That's like a knife. Maybe that's on one of your lists.
Nope.
That's a hard no. Well, Jay, with you being kind of the the guest of honor, so to speak, back in the saddle,
sure.
How do you feel about kicking us off?
I could try that.
Yeah, dip a toe in with your number 5.
I'm going to say it's number 5 on the list, insofar as there's no order to this. These are just great tunes, or not great, depending on how your view is. But remember the time when you were about 14 years old and the top of the charts included an unhinged phone call from a daughter trying to convince her mom to let her live her life? I sure do. Also, the artist that performed the song was a classically trained violinist, so she threw about 3.5 seconds of the weirdest violin part you've ever heard in the middle of the second post-chorus. That's Tracy Bonham's Mother. It's pure 1995 with Jagged Little Pill energy and the screaming wrath of a smothered youth. And it had fallen off of my radar for years until she popped up on TikTok playing her song acoustically and sounding exactly the same as she did 30 years ago.
It's so wild when it happens like that it's unexpected, right? Like it just hits you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Did you have that realization like when you heard that TikTok, like, oh shit, this song, or
Yes.
was it? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't quite that phrase. He was more like,
Yes.
because I
Hell
loved
yeah.
that tune. I absolutely loved that song. Still do, actually. Listened to it earlier today and rocked the hell out. It was so good.
Nice.
I've got to add. I have a feeling we're going to have this statement several times, but yeah, I've got to add that one because I completely.
I am truly floored by just how unhinged that song is.
Now I'm trying to remember, did that get any significant radio airplay back in the day?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If I remember right, it was a top 20 song at least on the Billboard
Oh
charts.
shit! Wow.
I don't remember if it hit like higher than that, but I know it was top 20.
It has make sure I was looking at the right. Yeah, it definitely has a lot of the institutionalized energy to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
She wanted more than a Pepsi though.
She did. I think she won an MTV award for it. I think it was the the most prestigious thing she won with it. It's not like she won any Grammys or whatever with that song, because obviously, but I think some like Daisy Fuentes countdown on Saturday mornings loved it.
Hey, I get the on the XM 90 station we have a Downtown Julie Brown.
There you
go.
Time, which is
Didn't realize this was a good episode of Let's Remember Some DJs.
VJs, thank you.
Mhm,
Sorry, VJs. I don't mean to. Hey, a lot of them did, especially in the early years. They were both.
That is true.
Sure.
That is true.
Daisy Fuentes, didn't she also do like co-host America's Funniest People or something like that with Dave Coulier?
Wow. That is the most and least expected sentence I've heard all day.
Wow. I mean, eesh.
I really hope anything I just said is real too, because otherwise, like, I didn't look any of this up. I'm just like spitting stuff out. I have no idea.
I mean, you could have gone on Chat GPT for all we know. Like, create a fake 90s dumb highlight show.
Maybe. I might be totally misremembering the mid 90s. That is entirely possible.
You are kind of correct.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
She co-hosted with John Fugelsang.
Oh, I was okay. Yeah, I was close. I had the show right though.
You were there, totally
Okay.
there.
Well done. Good memory.
Ah,
That's not at all the theme of the show, by the way. You
No,
missed
that's
the
not
assignment, my friend.
What we were going for, but you know what? I'm still impressed. Not gonna lie.
That's true.
well, why don't you impress me with
She's
your number
married
5?
to Richard Marx.
Excuse me? Run that back.
That's it.
There you have it, listeners. We are learning things as we go here on the show.
I need to close this browser. I know how I make the joke about us being Google Radio in the midst of every single episode, but man, that was like also not a sentence I expected to utter tonight.
Probably not the last time we're going to be in that realm either.
The problem is my
man.
brain goes, "Oh, that's a promo right there."
Write it down.
Oh my god.
I'll tell you both what I did write down.
Please do.
Yeah, please do that.
And that was my number 5. So just a quick synopsis on how I approached it. Definitely took it the way both of you did with the, that song kind of feel. But I knew that it would already be like a million songs long if I didn't put parameters on it. So I ended up putting some artificial limitations in there, one of which being what you had already spoken about, Jay, that it has to be something that's at least semi-known to someone in the world and not just like 300 listen song on Spotify. Also, at least 10 years old, because I have the brain of half a goldfish, and just like you, I would have forgotten about a song I heard last week. So I wanted to make sure that I had time to actually forget about it. And truth be told, just by coincidence, all of my stuff is at least, I think there's one song that's 19 years old. Everything else is well beyond that point. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, definitely was able to meet the assignment there without issue. So my number 5 was actually even farther back from 1986. It's a theme with the list and something that I really wanted to drive home for myself. And that is the fact that if I hear this song or any of the songs on my list, like I stop and listen. No matter what I'm doing, no matter where I'm at, Like, I am either going to hear the entirety of that song right then and there, or as soon as I'm in a position where I can get on to a Spotify device, then I will be listening to it immediately. And that is absolutely the case with several songs by this artist, but I had to pick one. It's one of those tracks that you hear as a kid, kind of similar to Mother Mother for you, Jay. And it was, for me, more of like a household song. Like, my parents would listen to this music quite a bit. So it was kind of indelibly marked. And then I went to college, and, this artist, albeit someone that I love, was never one that I really stopped to listen to. And I think that kind of created a little bit more magic in the rare instances that I would hear one of his songs artificially. I say one of his songs because another epiphany about this specific track is it's not just one person, which I learned embarrassingly late in life, that this is actually a duet. It is There's Nothing Better Than Love by Luther Vandross and, shockingly, Gregory Hines. I did not know that those two voices were not one voice until I was probably in my early 30s. But it is a fun song. It's a beautiful song. Gregory Hines being compared to Luther Vandross is, I don't know if there's a greater honor as a vocalist. And obviously his other thing, aka the amazing dancing, kind of speaks for itself too. So cool track, and one that I'm super stoked to hear, every few years when it kind of randomly comes up.
I was today years old when I found out those were two voices on that track.
Oh, thank God. Vindication.
I'm not convinced I learned that.
I'm disappointed I don't have Spotify open so I can listen to it in the background and actually confirm or deny.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an extra credit, see if you can block out the two voices and see if you can figure out whose voice is whose, especially during the chorus.
I'm gonna watch a video.
Yeah, the video gives it away, but it's
sure you
have to. I think
you're gonna get a text at 2:00 this morning because I'm not gonna be able to sleep until I listen to this. And
it is. I don't know if Luther sought out Gregory Hines, you sound like me, let's do a track together, or if that was just a happy accident. But man, they could be twins. Somebody got hey, Gregory, come here. Do you know who you sound like? Yeah, because people keep telling me that. Yeah. But I know Luther is in the other room. We should make this a thing. And they did. Sometimes it just works,
And that song is a jam. I need to hear that now.
Oh my gosh. All of these lists are going to be, hopefully for you listeners, in the same vein. We'll have the ride along playlist, as we always do, on fairlyKickAss.com. If you're in our vantage point of really needing to listen to everyone else's songs immediately too. Speaking of everyone else, Dan, I think you are everyone else for today. So go ahead and hit us with your number 5.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And yeah, for this, I was kind of thinking, it's not often that I can think of a song that was a top 10 hit in multiple countries, and it sort of was everywhere for a year or two, and then still have to go, oh yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it? But I would posit that my number 5 song belongs in that classification, that being Lenny Kravitz's Fly Away. And that's really why it checked my boxes for this list, because I remember this was one of the songs of 1998 and a little of 99. But it didn't really hang on the same way that a lot of other hits of that era and fall into that zone of nostalgia. And I could just totally be a me thing, and I just have a flyaway shaped blind spot in my brain, which is very, very possible. But I'm not sure why, because it's got a very memorable hook and that repetitive chorus that's supposed to get stuck in your head. And it just apparently didn't for me after the main wave of popularity passed.
I don't think you're alone there, but I do think most people have more of a Lenny Kravitz shaped hole in the back of their head when it comes to anything other than the Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah. Also true. It's also true.
Shout out Senna.
Maybe I just replaced it because my brain, when you talk about Lenny Kravitz, the first place musically my brain goes is the version of The Cross he did at that one. Was was it the Grammys with the Grammy tribute to Prince that was done, and he did The Cross and something else, but it was The Cross that just blew me away.
Yeah. Well, and the first thing I think of is Are You Gonna Go My Way? And
yeah, that's also true.
Will forever be the thing I think of because it's my favorite.
Again, I don't think it was as big of a hit, but I think it's more of his like signature tune.
Yeah, it is. And Fly Away, I'm with you on this one. You brought it back to my memory as well because I had, pitched it. It's one of those like nearly irresistible 4-chord songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those songs in particular get shit on a lot, but they're just like earworms a lot of times. This is no exception.
That year was full of a lot of those, and I will resist naming any of them because there's a strong possibility as I'm going through the list in my head right now that they're on some of your lists. Maybe.
I did probably also might have something to do with it. It's just there's so much other stuff in that 98, 99 area that just kind of pushed it farther back into memory compared to some other stuff. So
it was all the Limp Bizkit, right? That's what you had to remember. All right, my number 4. Sorry, I had nothing. I really can do my number 4 though.
I mean, we're here, so yeah.
Cool. So remember that time when you were about 8 years old and the trend in danceable music involved tunes that were like rockin' and playful and energetic and incredibly repetitive and mildly apocalyptic? I sure do. Whether you're walking, loving, or killing a dinosaur, it is nearly impossible not to feel energized by the anthemic jam Walk the Dinosaur by Was Not Was.
Like, if you could see the video, we both, Zach and I, had that moment of realization just hit our faces at the same time. Like, oh yeah.
That's why I paused. I was waiting for the reaction.
Oh my gosh.
As I was writing for this episode, I tried to come up with like bands that I barely remembered, and like Was Not Was is one of those names that sticks in your head, like just right there in your noodle without giving you any good reason to. And the song, despite being one of the funkiest songs of the late 80s, is surprisingly something that I think of very rarely.
I feel like this song would have been on, like, remember those commercials for, and I can't think of any of the names, but like the CD clearing houses where you would like get like 1,000 CDs for like $13.99 plus shipping. This song would have been on one of those compilations.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You know what the worst part of that is too? Is you said Was Not Was. And that's not, Walk the Dinosaur was not their first song.
No, I know. Oh, what was the first song of theirs that hit you?
The single right before that, Spy in the House of Love.
Yeah. Arguably, maybe, no, I disagree. I was going to say like it's a better, like House of Love's a better song. It's not. I prefer Walk the Dinosaur.
It's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that was oof. That was more of this list than anything on my list was for me. It may have been, it was definitely in the number of decades since I last heard that song. That's a hell of a pick.
Thanks. I you know what? And when I listened to it, like I thought of the song and I listened to part of it and then I wrote this thing and then I listened to my playlist back. And I hadn't made it all the way through the song again this time around and forgot that the whole last verse or the whole last chorus is everybody kill the dinosaur. Completely forgot about that. So I had to add that to the write-up.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to the show Dinosaurs, too. Since we're doing it with music, we'll do it with TV as well.
Yeah, when I looked up the song too, like it appeared in the 1995 regrettable movie, The Flintstones.
Ah, yes. Not so much a classic. There are other ways to describe it.
Yep.
How would you describe your number 4 song?
How would I describe my number 4 song? Christian, I think, is the best way to describe it. It's a genre that I typically don't get too deep into, specifically like Christian rock. but this track is kind of one that jumps out at me. And by jumps out, I mean jumps out when I hear it, even though I had a significant period of time between the last time I heard it and just recently that I heard this song again. And it was very much this song. It's one of those that I think got decent airplay back in the day. It was at least one that I remember listening to on the radio, on like maybe the alternative rock channel. But yeah, it's just a really good jam, and one that just hit all of the buttons of nostalgia and memory and all that fun stuff. The song is All Around Me by Flyleaf. And there are other Flyleaf songs that are also jams as well. But this one, I think, is the cream of their particular crop.
I love Flyleaf. Love.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. The vocals on I'm getting all girl fan over here.
Do it.
Fangirl. What the hell just happened?
This episode will do it to you, man. It's all topsy-turvy.
No, that's a hell of a pick. I had completely forgotten about them as well, or that song as well, and the band. Actually, I don't think I've listened to Flyleaf.
I was gonna say I did the same thing. I don't think I've listened to enough Flyleaf to have an opinion, unfortunately.
They didn't last very long, but a couple albums that are absolute fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's some radio ready rock jams with just amazing vocals. The guitar works good. The music, the vocals are what sell Flyleaf. She's brilliant.
Yeah, Lacey Sturm. Who's just apparently she had left the band in like the mid 2010s and since has rejoined just a couple years ago, just like November of 22, apparently. So I don't know if they are going to have another release, if they're touring at all, but at least to some extent, the band is back together. So we'll see what they got in the future.
I will put my ear back to that particular pulse. That's not how the phrase goes.
Audio medium, I know.
Say the visual jokes are great.
All right, Carrot Top, bring it on to the prop.
It's a statement for those who are ignorant and poorly educated, with fingers far from the pulse of society.
You're poorly educated.
Thank you. If you get that reference, please shoot us a line at one of our various social media outlets and let us know.
Oh, God.
You will be number like 7 or 8. You still remember that show?
I don't think Kevin remembers that show.
That's probably fair.
Well, I know you remember your number 4, although you probably haven't remembered it for too long if it is on your list.
Agreed. And it's definitely a departure from what you just went out there for. Speaking of memory. All right. Gather around, kids. It's story time. Interior, night. Very little light in the bedroom, save for the dull green glow of a clock radio, which is this thing that used to be in like everybody's bedroom in the mid-90s. It was this completely separate box whose only purpose was to tell the time and occasionally dial into a radio station. In our current bedroom, a teenage boy is fiddling with a tuner, looking for a certain station that played nothing but calming, soft rock this time of night. Call it a quiet storm, if you will. Finding the station he was looking for, he set the sleep timer on the clock for 60 minutes and slid down into the bed, waiting to drift off to the soothing sounds that always helped put him out. And just before he drifts off, he hears a new, smooth baritone sound that was new to his ears. Instead of letting it make its eyelids even heavier, he perked up, listening attentively. He found himself wrapped up in the story being told by the song, a radio DJ with a late-night show who plays music for the lovelorn, implying that he's the voice there to listen to the brokenhearted and willing to try and help heal relationships or offer advice through the mode of music. That very evening, our teen decided he'd found his calling. He would look into the medium. He would go into that medium, and he would become the country's best purveyor of soft, romantic rock, destined to have his voice heard in cars and homes across the nation, and providing a soothing tone for those in need of the calming mood that sent him to his radio on that night. You know that teenager now as America's greatest DJ, Paul Rudd. And now you know the rest of the story.
That was too well done.
Yeah, seriously. What fucking show is this?
I might have started with an idea, gotten lost in the middle of it, came back, and then realized I needed to find a way to write out of it. But it all was a roundabout way to tell you my number 4 song that I forgot about was Joshua Caddison's Bo's All Night Radio Love Line. There's a little bit of truth in the tale I just spun, a little bit, in that I remember hearing this song as a kid and thinking being on the radio would be cool, especially late at night because I've apparently never had a problem with being nocturnal. Oh. I didn't actually get into the business to do a Love Line type show, unfortunately, where I played Chicago every 5th song. It was actually sports and news that I really wanted to do, so at least I got there with that. But being reminded of the track reminded me of so much of my former main business that, while I hadn't heard it for years, its influence must have stuck in my brain and given me an unconscious nudge in the broadcasting direction when I went looking for a career after that whole teaching thing fell through. And the statute of limitations is over with. We can talk about it later. And Caddison must have known what being in the industry was really like when he wrote the bridge of this track, which goes, "And Bo's really thinking, this job hardly pays, but he can't figure out how to ask for a raise."
Man,
it's a good
I'll
line.
gladly explain more on that one during our next AMA stream.
It's a good line.
that's such a good line.
Yeah.
It hits way home, but yeah.
Those were, I mean, I think that folks nowadays, especially like younger folks, like just have a gap of the days when we would have actual radio stations with actual DJs that you grew an attachment to.
DJs that would actually be in your city, who actually worked in the cities that they were broadcasting to.
Yeah, it was like a familiarity thing. Like you knew you could turn on this station at this time, and more often than not, you would hear this voice. There was a comfort there.
Fourth wall break. If you listen to the radio now and you're not in a top 10 city, the voice you hear probably is nowhere near you.
It's sad. I get it from a business perspective. I do, but man, those were some good times.
And this is the one song on my list, I think, from top to bottom. I knew I was going to be the only one who knew what it was.
Yeah. I have no idea what that song is.
That's fine. Yeah, if you weren't into like the sappy mid-90s R&B, that's a completely new name for you, but it's a solid ballad record. There's like three singles off of it. Painted Desert Serenade that actually got big, or at least 2 of them that had some decent airplay, and that was like a B-side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, based on what we know of ourselves through our various re-racks of mid-90s sappy R&B, because that's basically all that was on the charts at that time.
Ton of it there.
Yeah, a whole lot of it. Obviously, we're all fans of that genre. I just don't know how this would have escaped me, or if it's really just that obscure.
It might be a bit of a deep dive.
Okay.
That wasn't a suggestion.
I'm
not writing that one. Sorry. Nothing. Okay. No disrespect.
Well, clearly no disrespect. You enjoyed the song enough to bring it back up now.
For sure. It's good enough to get a listen out of me.
And gave it a beautiful write-up for what it's worth.
Look, I when you have a joke in your head, right? Sometimes you have to finish it.
Yeah.
I had to finish my story.
Very nice. Very nice. The reference counter just keeps going up.
So
how many more can you get in, Jay, with your number 3 song?
I doubt that I will bring a whole lot of references up right now. So remember the time when you were driving across the country with your wife and she keeps adding songs to the queue just to get a reaction from you while you're driving? I sure do. Among the songs on the list is a series of dance pop songs from the late aughts that she thinks you're going to hate. And mostly she's right, but then LaRue's Bulletproof comes on and you surprise her by singing every word as loud as you can. And she's singing along as well. And people in the Winnebago in the next lane next to you are glancing at you and worried that you're going to swerve erratically. So they speed up and leave you in their dust, but you don't care because Bulletproof is one of the funnest songs that's ever been recorded. And you had forgotten about it until that moment. That ever happened to you?
Like just now. Yeah. Within the last 10 seconds, that definitely happened.
So that
It wasn't
happened.
to Winnebago.
Fair enough. That one. So that happened a little while ago, and probably before we did the re-rack of 2010's Billboard chart, when we actually had to do it for the pod. But you know what? That song comes on and just it gets me. It's so dumb and fun and poppy, and I can't not sing along.
No, it's like they shoved every, like, all the hooks they could possibly come up with into this one, and was like, here, we're just gonna play it all through this Casio keyboard here, and it's still gonna be a banger.
Yeah. It's totally a banger.
The bridge. Oh, the bridge. This time I'll be. It's so like if there is, and I hope that there is a Kill Bill Volume 3, and this is not on the soundtrack, then it is a missed opportunity.
Right.
I know you're out there, Quentin. Put it on the damn soundtrack. Make the movie.
Quentin Tarantino, known friend of the pod.
Hey, we're worldwide, baby.
One of these days,
no,
we're gonna say that and get sued.
They were not, in fact, worldwide. They were not even regional.
How dare you imply that my client was ever a fan of this piddly little show?
I want my $8 back.
I'm just one of these times I'm just going to be right. Like, I'm going to say that and they're going to like chime in or something.
This moment will happen. The moment that we know that we've made it.
Yeah.
Hey, if we're lucky, someone will send the story to Paul Rudd. We might get a reaction out of that.
I would see Paul Rudd like really vibing with the show, like real talk.
Yeah.
This seems like his brand of humor and insight, because he's a very humorous, insightful guy. Very good looking too. I mean, I don't know if he's listening. In case he is, I mean, the man hasn't aged in 30 years. That's gotta be worth something alone. God, like, does he exfoliate? Like, what's the game plan there?
Yeah, he's got to have a good skincare routine.
Hair game's on point too.
Do you know what else has a good? Nope. That's not gonna go. Nope. It's just gonna square peg round hole it. Yeah, do your number 3 song.
I'm doing it. We are going to, I know we've talked a lot about the 90s so far in this episode, just kind of coincidentally with where our lists have fallen. And my number 3 is no exception, released in 1997. And let me ask y'all, and I'm rhetorically asking, I don't want to put you on the spot because that's not fun, but let's look at the rap scene in the 1990s. If I ask you and the listeners who the best rappers of the decade of the 1990s were, the best 2, we'd probably get a plethora of different answers, probably 10, maybe even 20 different responses, depending on how many people we polled. If we instead ask who were the 2 hardest rappers of the 1990s, that list would be much, much, much more narrow. And the 2 that were responsible for this track very well might be 1 and 1A. So considering that, it is incredible to be able to forget a song with not 1, but 2 hip-hop forces combined to make a super powerful, super good track like this, especially when the track is such a juxtaposition of who they are. That this track is about hope and optimism and literally grinning in the face of all the bullshit that comes to your door every single day. It's a song that honestly I would do well to remember myself when I'm bummed out, so I can turn that frown upside down. My number 3 song is Scarface featuring Tupac and Smile. The sad part about this song is that it was posthumous. It was actually released a few months after Tupac's passing, but it has left a mark on the music world and has clearly left a mark on me for the few times that I've heard it since the 1990s. It's always one that, I stop in place and it's like, no, we let this one go to conclusion. We're not skipping the track here.
Oh yeah, you can't skip that track.
No, you hit it right in the head. That is if it ends up in a mix and it plays, you stop what you're doing.
That's true of a number of Tupac's tunes. But I'm with you. Like, it's unfortunate, but a number of the posthumous releases just kind of disappeared for me.
Yeah,
like just out the window. I don't really have a good reason for that either.
I think it's just hard without that connection, without him actually being there, you know. For me, it was, at least, because I think I felt the same thing. It wasn't like I don't like this artist any less, but it was like there's just not that visual reference. There's not that, you know, that material being there. This got really deep accidentally, but I mean, it's the kind of song that elicits that sort of reaction. So
yeah, I mean that is a song. That's wow.
And I'm also having that moment when I realize that I think that's the only Scarface track I've got just stored in the back of my head, and I need to go find more.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the most underrated rappers of the 90s.
Yeah,
and definitely up there in the top tier.
Agree to that.
Dan,
is your
please, by all means.
Is your number 3 track gonna keep us in this deep feeling kind of trench?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm going to give you whiplash again. I mentioned it earlier, but when I was putting this list together, I said help had been offered, and I took it. And so I mentioned to my sister, who has a far more eclectic taste in music than I do. And she was like, I immediately hit back, I have ideas. Like, okay. So I made the Spotify playlist I was working on a collaborative list. And needless to say, she came back to me in like 5 minutes going, I have to walk away. I added like 100 songs.
And she had more.
I know, and I know she did, and it just proves that our brains retain music in very different ways with the two of us. But the first thing I saw that we had both loaded onto that list was this song, so I figured I had to find a place for it. And it's another track similar to "Fly Away." My number 3 forgotten song is Paula Cole with "Where Have All the Cowboys Gone." And this one may have gotten shoved into that 90s black hole because her second hit seemed even bigger once I Don't Want to Wake and Attach at Dawson's Creek, despite the fact the Cowboys ended up a couple spots higher on the Billboard Hot 100. That one, again, when something becomes your signature tune, it kind of, deadens everything else. But it's another song that was seemingly everywhere for months and months. The music video was on repeat in the VH1 universe, just like Fly Away. And I may have just realized that I might have spent too much of the late 90s with that channel on the TV.
Yeah. Yes. The correct answer is what I'm trying to say very ineloquently.
So that song for me falls into a whole category of music that I probably forgot about. Yeah. And that is like the second wave Lilith Fair music.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm an older teenage boy when that's happening. I'm probably not listening to a lot of Lilith Fair stuff, whether because I don't actually like it or because it's not cool to like it. You be the judge of which one of those two that was. But there's a whole bunch of stuff from that era that I just didn't retain. Dawson's Creek may have had something to do with that as well, because I legitimately did not like that show.
You know what show I do want to make right now?
Your number.
Where are we at?
I don't know.
2. Remember that time when you were playing a gig at a bar that you frequent and you thought you had a great idea for what song you would play next? I sure do. So you play the song and you get the same smattering of applause that you might get from simply belching into the microphone, and you move on to the next song thinking nothing of it. Then at the end of that set, someone comes up to you and asks, what was that song you played about the pesos and Star Trek? I remembered it, but I don't remember who did it. And then a handful of other people go, oh yeah, what was that? And now you're explaining to a bunch of people in this bar that you love that the group that did the theme song to King of the Hill actually had songs that are amazing and more people need to know that. Remember that? My pick is Banditos by The Refreshments. It's a fantastic song. It's so funny and so well put together, and the Refreshments are amazing, and people don't know that. At least not enough people don't. I'm going to stop talking.
The only reason I wouldn't say that's a forgotten song for me is that it routinely comes up, because it's just one of those songs, because it is one of the more fun songs I can just randomly throw on and go, yeah, check this out.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what it's not forgotten for me because I play it at those gigs and
Right,
make
well.
it that song for other people.
Sure.
I will admit I'm definitely in the camp of only having heard the King of the Hill intro song called Yahoos and Triangles, apparently, today I learned.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything else
Oh my God.
from the Refreshments, and it sounds like I really need to.
The album is Fizzy Fuzzy Big and Buzzy, and just put it on and just go start to finish. You will not regret it.
Done. Consider it done. I am excited.
Me too now. I want to talk about it later.
Yeah. We're going to have a whole podcast worth of like just after show shit that we talk about.
We should
we keep threatening to do that, but then once again, lawsuits.
We just got to put it in the special subscriber wall.
Oh yeah, it's Patreon exclusive.
That's right.
Do we have
more
that?
of our bullshit?
No.
Well, pay us money for it. What?
If it's on Patreon, you can't get sued for it.
It's right.
I'm pretty sure.
It's a rule.
If that's not a real thing, give this Supreme Court some time, and we'll make sure we get it that way.
I got my law degree in the last 10 seconds. I can firmly declare that is a rule.
No. You got to say it proper. Like you got to do it like a proper Southern old schooly like lawyer.
I'm not
I
trying
do
to
declare this to be a legal matter.
Like the fucking chicken from Futurama.
Yep, that's where I was going with that. Please stop me and do your number 2 song. Yeah.
I am going to go to my number 2.
Sleep Deprivation, the podcast.
Don't you love it? And I love my number 2, in fact. It's a song that I will randomly hear every few years, like clockwork, for some reason, more often than any of the other songs in my top 5. But really not often enough to be like often. It's still infrequent, but instead of every decade, it's maybe every 3 to 5 years. And every time, like clockwork, as I'd mentioned before, I will stop what I'm doing and listen and usually get on Spotify right after to play it again from beginning to end because the song is that good and I enjoy it that much. Even though it's a song about really terrible shit happening to people, including death. It is not the most friendly song. It certainly is not uplifting like the other tracks on my list. But I just cannot deny how much I love Pepper by the Butthole Surfers. I don't have anything else to say. I love the song, and it's always a good day when I get to listen to that jam.
Okay, so that song is on the short list of songs that I left off my short list.
Yes. That is
and now
win.
I'm very glad that is how that worked.
That might be the first overlap we've had.
I mean,
even on like
is it truly an overlap if I left it off of my honorable mentions list?
I'm grasping at straws.
It's fair enough.
For this episode, I figured we'd have 15 completely different songs, and I was going to be shocked if it was anything different.
Right. No, that's a hell of a pick.
Oh, it's a great song. It's very amusingly one of the least likely hit songs of the 90s.
Yeah.
If you want to have some fun, they, off that song, did an appearance on Letterman. Now, if you know anything about the Butthole Surfers, I want you to try and picture the Butthole Surfers playing David Letterman.
Yeah.
And they have to play, you do 2 songs usually, right? Yep. So they had to do a second song. Yeah. I'm sure it's out somewhere on YouTube to find it. It's a fun watch. Letterman has no idea. Like you can tell as he's introducing them, he's like, they're on because they have a big radio hit. Who are you again? You do what now?
And they probably loved that introduction too, because that's just in their personality,
right up their alley. Exactly.
Sure. My favorite thing was, I think it was about 10 years ago, they hooked up with Dale Crover and King Buzzo of Melvin's and did a free concert, I suppose you could call it, at Lincoln Park outside Chicago or in Chicago, where they just handed out like ice cream to the local kids and played the loudest music you've ever heard in your life.
Yes.
It's what, 2 drummers, 2 bass guitars, all yelling, and it was awesome.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And certainly they got shut down within minutes, but before that happened.
But they had ice cream, so it's all fine.
Yep.
That's true. Ice cream solves everything.
Truth. You know what else will solve things right now?
Oh,
Dan's
don't do
number
this
2
to
song.
me. Don't do this to me.
Like riding a bike.
So you remember that time you had a single from an absolute legend that really isn't that well remembered alongside their best or iconic tracks? I
Yeah.
do. Maybe that single was from an album that didn't really do that well in the critical eye either, so it kind of gets shuffled to the side in favor of arguably much better tracks. Yeah. I feel like I'm almost trying to set up like if a tree falls type scenario here. But it doesn't quite follow because while being one of this artist's less remembered singles, it still came from a record that sold over 20 million copies worldwide. So it's not like it was hidden. But even if that record is in fact history and that artist is still Michael Jackson, my number 2 song is Stranger in Moscow. This is one I wasn't even aware of until like 4 or 5 years after the record came out. And I somehow ended up watching the music video album for the record before listening to the record. And it had all the greatest hits video because that was what it was. So it had all the greatest hits videos. And then they added in a whole other studio album as a second disc. And ironically enough, the video to this was one of the first uses of the visual effect that we now call bullet time. So while Max Payne gave it to us, we thought first in the video game world, Jacko and his team ushered it into film. The song itself is one of his more interesting ballads with a noticeably high amount of vocal echo, especially for an MJ song. Being a song that Jackson wrote in the 93-94 time period, it should come as no surprise that it was about his interactions and struggles with the media. But wrapping that around a narrative involving the KGB and the newly emerging Russian Federation, that was an interesting take. But the wildest and nerdiest thing about this song is that it actually, the base of it came out of the work that Jackson and his keyboardist, Brad Buxer, did when they were hired to write music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And you can clearly hear the bass of Stranger in Moscow on the end credits track. It's sped up. It's the same song. Now, they were never credited for that work. They kind of left the project after writing that song, reportedly either because Michael was frustrated with the restrictions of the sound chip on a 16-bit machine or because it was right around the time when he was being hit with child abuse allegations, one of the two. But either way, they remained uncredited for the track, and they plucked that skeleton out and produced a hit pop track, which, looping back, remains one of MJ's forgotten and maybe a little unloved charting songs.
That's such a good pick. I don't even mind that you stole my bit.
Well, it was going to happen. I just decided when it was going to happen.
No, the timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be in the room, in like the Sonic creative room. Like, had a couple of good hit games, right, guys? Yeah, we sure did. All right, we got the game number 3. We got the soundtrack coming. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Let's get Michael Jackson for it. Yeah, wait.
What'd you say?
A different guy named with the same name as you want to get the guy. Are you actually serious? You're fired like right now. Like, just to have the Stones to do that and to pull it off, like, holy shit.
Wait, they get Michael Jackson and the Stones?
That's even more impressive. Did the Stones end up writing the Casino Zone music?
I actually do believe that. If you told me that, I would not bat an eyelash. Like, yeah, clearly.
I want to make sure my dates are right before I make this joke, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say how embarrassed and kind of bummed out I am that despite the fact that I had the CD, I do not remember the song.
Oh, really?
There you go.
Yeah, I was looking through the track list and it's like, yeah, I definitely had the CD. I remember the cover. I remember everything about it, but I do not remember for some reason. There's a gap where the song was. So
even after we did the one song for Michael Jackson, like you didn't get to that?
To his defense a little bit too, it was originally just a greatest hits album.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Michael had a whole bunch of stuff, and this song is one of the reasons they were like, well, let's make it a double album and then do a whole record of new stuff too.
And that's fine. But I'm still going to give him a hard time because we know how Spotify works, right? You don't have to put on another disc.
Damn.
He had
It's
a
like
lot of
continuous
songs, bro.
play.
He had
There's
a lot of songs.
There's a lot of songs.
And see, I
No.
had to go back to my joke, and makes me wonder if him being involved with this was just him working off what he made Sonic or made Sega do when they had to make Moonwalker.
Oh, that was an atrocity of a game. It was so terrible.
But that's
so
another podcast.
terrible. I really wanted to like that game, and I tried so hard to like that game.
I think a lot of people did.
Mhm.
It was not good. No part of that. Like,
Even as a kid, it's like, this isn't cool.
I'm
This
gonna.
is so anti-cool.
Yeah, it's like, this is so bad. I'm gonna go play Bonk the Caveman.
But that's another show.
A lot of the stuff that we do on this show is another
It's
show.
another show. I know.
Yeah.
What's not another show though, and the question is going to be, how do we make sure we compress this? So let's rapid fire some honorable mentions, shall we?
I can do that. I'm gonna keep it to 5.
Okay, me too.
So I've got 6 Underground by the Sneaker Pimps. That is probably the best song of the Crow soundtrack era. I have a Natural One by the Folk Implosion, which no one should ever forget that song. It has a fantastic main like bass line part, and it's a brilliant song, and I absolutely love it, but I forget it all the time, and then it just pops into my head at random. How about What I Am by Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians?
Oh, yeah.
I had a conversation with my dad the other day and made a joke. I can't even remember how it popped up, but I finished one of the lyrics to the song, and I was like, religion, it's a smile on a dog. And that's how I remembered that this song existed.
Brilliant.
How about the Crash Test Dummies? Not that became the the impetus for Weird Al's epic Star Wars song. How about the other one, the other hit they had off that album, which was Afternoons and Coffee Spoons, where things are measured out by coffee spoons and T.S. Eliot. And finally, let's go with Get Off This by Cracker. Very repetitive tune. I absolutely love the chorus, and I often find myself coming back to the lyrics because, things are, it's motivation, right? Get off this, get on with it. If you want to change the world, shut your mouth and start to spin it.
Good list. That could have been the top 5 right there, and I would have thought that was a great top 5.
Indeed.
Well, it rounds out my top 10.
Yeah, especially that Afternoons and Coffee Spoons. Dude,
I love that song.
Yeah.
So good.
I could listen to that dude's voice all day.
I usually do. That's one of my driving go-tos.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Just that God Shuffled His Feet record, just you put it on and let it go.
That and the one preceding or following. I think the following album.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, the preceding one, The Ghosts That Haunt Me from
Okay.
91. Both those two albums are usually in the driving rotation.
Yeah. Love that stuff.
Yeah.
How does a duck know what direction south is?
Okay, that's uncanny. You need to not do that because it's creeping me out. If you say the word once like that, I swear I'm going to just leave the room.
I can, but now I'm laughing.
Oh gosh. Well,
all right. So what's on your list then? While I get rid of the giggles.
So I'm going to just give a random smattering. Like I said, I've got like 20 or so honorable mentions. So I'm just going to throw a few out there that catch my eye. First off, Procol Harum, A Whiter Shade of Pale. I feel like I hear that song every few years, and it's just awesome. One that I literally forgot about until yesterday as I was cooking dinner and thinking about other songs I forgot, and it hit me. Talk Shows on Mute by Incubus. Cool jam. Let's go with... for several years, for 20, 30 years, the very last track on the very last Pink Floyd album, The Division Bell, the track was High Hopes. Beautiful song, beautiful cover by one of my favorite bands, Nightwish, for one of their live albums as well. Keane with Somewhere Only We Know. I know it was a big hit, but it is a big hit that I do not think about that often. And Finally, one that I don't think about because I actively skip it every time that I listen to any of the music from this band because it is an absolute atrocity, but I felt like I had to add it for that reason. If You See Jordan by Something Corporate. That song is a dumpster fire, and I will continue to forget about it until my dying day.
It's just gonna everyone. That's your version of losing the game, right? Like it's just gonna pop into your head, and you're gonna be like, "Son of a bitch!" and then the person at the bus stop will turn and look at you like, "What's happening?"
And
It's
you'll be
the
the only reason is you'll be at that part in the song in your head where you'll call them a little redhead bitch.
Exactly. Fuck you, Jordan. Oh, it's so bad. Dan, what about your 5 outside of the 5?
All right, I'll go ahead and be just as quick with this because the 5 that I settled on for this was also 5 When the Lights Go Out. Yep, that was. It's not a great song.
Nope.
But it's got a memorable hook.
Memorable.
Look, I know I have a decent touch of the CTE. What's your excuse?
Oh, I have none. Whiskey, I guess.
Touche. This is very powerful. Blackberry lemonade sparkling water. Anyway, how about some weird early 2000s jazzy rock stuff? Los Lonely Boys in Heaven. Yeah.
It's I think it's one for some reason I hear a lot, so I don't clock it as like a song that I forgot, but it's a good song.
I had forgotten it and I was okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, same thing. Great, interesting riffs.
Yeah, I suppose
It's got some good guitar work.
Yeah.
A solid pop song we've forgotten from the UK, Republica and Ready to Go.
Hell yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I hadn't forgot that one. That one I throw on playlists regularly if I need like a get pumped mix.
Nice. A guy we're kind of, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything else, but just Modest Yahoo and King Without a Crown.
That's a whole ass band that I forgot about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and as soon as you mentioned that, I think I can hear his beard.
Bravo. No notes.
10 out of 10. Would tell again. And finally for me, I'll throw up there 7 Mary 3 and Cumbersome. And all I remember about this band is that song, the fact they do or did a wicked cover of Eleanor Rigby, and the fact that Jay once opened for them at a very cool club in downtown Toledo that has long since been raised for a hockey arena.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that happen. I obviously don't remember being there, but I remember you mentioning that at some point.
Yeah, that was a fun show, and I enjoyed doing that. I've also performed that song "Cumbersome" 1,000 times on stage. So,
Well, that's why it's my honorable mention.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. See, for me, that would be "Water's Edge." Would be the 7 Mary 3 song that we all forgot about.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The only reason I haven't forgotten about that song is because it's on a playlist that I made of like songs of that ilk during that era that I listen to pretty often. So
see, I have a couple of those, and for some reason it didn't make it onto those playlists. So it was a little longer for me.
Yeah.
I think they did a tune called Black Wing on a like Music for Our Mother Ocean or something that like Eddie Vedder pushed for a while. And I had the album, and it's got like 7 Mary 3 and Jewel and Pearl Jam, obviously, and a handful of others on there. And that song Blackwing is probably my favorite 7 Mary 3 tune.
There's 2 of them I'll have to check out now.
Yeah, same.
But more importantly, I want to know, will I be checking out your number 1 song?
Oh, let's find out. Remember that time when you were about 13 years old and pop rap was like influenced by jazz and trip hop and new jack and just about anything else that was happening at the time? I sure do. And my favorite example of that was undoubtedly Lucas with the Lid Off by Lucas. I'm looking at blank stares at the moment. Yeah. Nobody's remembering this tune. That's I'm sorry that it's that. It was not that obscure at the time, I promise, but it is complicated. It is super complex. It is heavy on the samples, smooth on the flow, catchy as hell. And the piano part around the 3-minute mark is beyond fire. And I legitimately forgot about the song until I started trying to think of songs that I forgot about.
I do wonder if it's one of those that will hit me as I'm listening to it, because just hearing you discuss it. Like, it does not ring any sort of bells. But
what if I said, whatever bubbles, bubbles up?
I guess not.
Maybe not.
Okay.
Nope.
No. Well, and something new to add to my list for the next time we do this.
I highly encourage, aside from listening to the entirety of the Refreshments record, just pop this. Actually, this whole album is a jam too, but this song in particular, just pop that in and just be floored.
Done. Yeah.
Sold.
I have no way to segue to your number one track, by the way. I just...
Yeah, I was trying to think of something else to say as I was like learning about Lucas on Wikipedia, and Danish rapper is just not a term that you see terribly often. So just that in of itself was enough for me to want to learn more.
I mean, at least he's not Lucas Graham.
No, absolutely not.
I'll tell you who is Lucas Graham. No.
Oh,
Surprise. No, we're
Here, I was gonna beg you not to take 7 years to get to your number one.
well played. It's a little bit older than Lucas Graham, I would say. And of all the songs on my short list, on my top 5 list, this, I'm fairly certain, is the one that I've forgotten about for the longest period of time. Probably, as I'm counting in my head, almost 30 years. All I had remembered about the song prior to when I heard it a few years ago was that I had heard it at some point in the very distant past, and I really, really liked it. I couldn't remember anything about the artist, about the song title, about what it sounded like. There was just like this, like you put a file on your computer, there was a file in my brain where this song was at, and it was in a folder called just like Less Than 3. And that was the only information that I had. So there was no way I was going to find this song unless I just randomly happened upon it. Enter Carrie Russell and Matthew Reese. I know, 2 names that you probably didn't expect to hear, nor did I at the time. Together, and I believe married with a child in real life, and also together on the hit show The Americans. Now, I won't spoil too much in case any of y'all haven't seen it, because I also haven't seen it. I watched most of this show in bits and pieces over producer Nikki's shoulder, who I think she's watched it through twice now, maybe more than that. But there were a number of really great scenes, and one scene especially that caught my ear with the song playing and then had me enthralled from there with really great acting and just I didn't know what was going on, obviously, but I could tell that it was just a really well acted, well portrayed scene with great music in the backdrop. So shout out to the characters Elizabeth and Philip Jennings, and shout out to the title track of the 1985 Dire Straits album, Brothers in Arms. The song decries war with the Falklands War and its lasting effects as its motif. It's haunting, it's heartbreaking, it's subtle, but also hits you like a jackhammer at the same time. It's a gorgeous song, and it hits me right in the feels every time I remember it. And it's a song that I do go out of my way now to make sure that I'm playing more often than every 30 years because it is so incredible.
Yeah, Mark Knopfler, one of the best finger pick guitar players of all time.
Fucking GOAT, man.
I've also not seen The Americans, so I can't comment on its position in the scene you're talking about.
I am unfamiliar. The only thing I can contribute, because my brain also locked up, because as we were going to transition, I was going to make the random reference of, come on, quit Stalin and give us your marks. And it turns out that actually would have worked.
That would have been the greatest moment in the history of the show. Or the Americans, for that matter.
Although absolutely no. And another one thing, like, because it gets pushed to the back because of another group's signature tune, but a group that has so many good songs that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that discography is just littered. It's kind of unfair, you know?
Right?
Yeah, as long as you take out that one verse of Money for Nothing, the rest of their catalog is pretty badass.
Agreed.
I'm playing it back in my head to try to hear the verse. To genius.com.
Do you want us to give you a second so you can catch up and have that realization moment, or do you want to just move on?
No, it'll come while you're doing your number one. Don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's have it, Dan. Let's hear what you got.
So I would have put this out because we haven't actually complained about this yet, but I feel like I should. So let me do that now. This was a really hard concept to nail down because of we do what we do. It is kind of our side job to know a ton of music and to constantly have music in our heads. And I'm assuming that you two are like me and that you're constantly rotating stuff in and out of your virtual CD changer. Virtual. So while you may go a decent period of time between listens for certain artists and songs, they're never really that far out of mind, which is the problem I kept having. I can't tell you how many songs I was like, yeah, oh no, I heard that a little bit ago. Nah, I mean, I went through so many playlists, and while I did put together a decent size short list we were talking about earlier, there was a ton of stuff that would be rated highly forgotten by the vast majority of the public. And for me, it was just sitting on my most listened to tracks in 2018 from Spotify. Needless to say, deciding what to call my most forgotten about song was a really tough ask because at this point, it would barely be every track I've never heard before. But I was able to narrow my brain down towards something that contains a sample, a sample that's highly recognizable and yet often forgotten and misattributed for the source and the song that sampled it. So let me quickly give you some reasons I decided to name White Town's Your Woman as the number one song I forgot about. Partly wanted to put it here because it's actually a really good song that shouldn't be relegated to the dustbins of our memories, which unfortunately maybe it has. But also because it opened with this tremendous trumpet sample, which we all took to be something it wasn't, essentially forgetting the source. Yeah, it's a stretch for a double meaning. Stay with me now. You hear that track, and you wonder how an underground British Indian guy could afford to sample John Williams' Imperial March. Except that he didn't. That trumpet is not from Star Wars, despite everyone's remembrances to the contrary. It's in fact from a song called My Woman, recorded way back in 1932 by Bing Crosby, but the version more recognized and more widely sampled was from the 1933 version by Lou Stone and his Monsignor Band. And it was a B-side. Either way, it's an ageless pop song that may even top a list of songs that you know but don't know that or why you do. And hell, we may have already done that list and I missed it because of the exact moment it was a top song that I just forgot.
Yeah, that tracks. And it's a great song.
Talk about digging in the crates for that sample. Like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're not finding that at your local record store. I promise you that.
Well, and I think they probably didn't have to dig too hard because it's been sampled a number of times. Like every 15 years or so, somebody does something with that sound.
And I honestly don't know if we keep getting reminded of that sample because of Your Woman, or if
probably
there was stuff beforehand.
Maybe so.
So yeah, I don't know if that was the progenitor or there were other songs before it. It's just something that they had in the back of their head.
It's probably the most widespread hit with that sample.
Yeah, that's true.
Great. Good stuff.
Ask, yeah. That was definitely one that I've also forgotten about for a number of years. So adding that to my personal list. Yeah. So I think that brings us to the end of our show. Jay, what did you think?
Well, first of all, I gotta say that, as you pointed out earlier, it's like riding a bike. It is good to be back. I am glad to be back, making sounds into microphones that Nikki will cut till they're no longer in the show, probably, because they're bad sounds. But no, it's good to be back. And this was I had a lot of fun with this list. This was great.
Good way to get back into things,
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at some of the previous shows that Dan and I did, I feel like this one was the prompt was the most fun that we've done.
Those were dumpster fires, weren't they?
They were kind of bad, bro.
I think we got to leave that up to the listeners.
Ooh. No. We asked the producer, and we handed our files, and she went, "What the hell am I supposed to do with this?"
To be fair, she does that at least once per episode.
Yeah. Yeah, she
Probably,
does.
Yeah. What the hell did you guys do? Sorry.
She's going to have to cut 20 to 25 minutes out of this episode, and I have a feeling I know exactly what things she's going to cut out.
Like every Thursday night starts with an apology as soon as I get out of the studio.
I am so sorry.
You
I didn't mean this to happen, but
like hand her a thumb drive with the file from the episode alongside a bowl of like mac and cheese because she needs the comfort food.
A peace offering again.
some rum while you're at it.
Yeah. Well, listeners, if you feel that our producer didn't cut enough out, which is very possible, let us know. Let us know what you think about this and every episode of the Fairly KickAss podcast in all the usual places. It is at Fairly KickAss, again, at Fairly KickAss on Threads, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. fairlyKickass@gmail.com if you want to send us an email yelling or swearing at us. All very acceptable answers for this question of why we're doing this thing still after 4 years. fairlykickass.com. The ride-along playlist for each of the episodes will be posted there. We will be getting this ride-along playlist posted right around the time that the episode drops. So for the time being, just go to the website and get it. And if we do figure out how to go directly to Spotify to see all of our ride-along playlists, then we will let you know from there. Speaking of Spotify, it is the only home of the Fairly Kick-Ass podcast up through earlier this year. We have several episodes that are Spotify exclusive. We made the transition to be not Spotify exclusive. I think it was in May-ish of this year. Yeah. So any episodes that come after that, you can get wherever you get your podcasts, your favorite podcast provider, your favorite podcast app. Just search for Fairly Kick-Ass and we will be there. We are periodically pulling those episodes from the Spotify exclusivity and reposting them. There were a couple of those that we've had already. I believe the deep dive episodes of Bone Thugs and Harmony and the Spice Girls, and more to come throughout the next several months. So yeah, give us a listen and like and subscribe for more, or however podcasts work. I still don't know.
Definitely subscribe. I mean, I think that's, maybe if you can rate it wherever you're listening. I mean, give us at least a 2, maybe 3 if you're feeling generous.
Oh, 3 seems like a little much.
So I said generous. I don't want to sound like I'm begging here, but
hey, we gotta do what we gotta do.
It's all part of the game.
Now I just lost.
And all of you lost as well. Good night.